Sometimes Charles Fillmore, founder of Unity, used to say, anyone can sing a little song. And he believed in the power of music to carry a thought of truth, what we call an affirmative phrase, to take it into our life in reality. He was so excited about that idea that we can all sing, and as a community we can sing together words of truth, that in the 1920s he thought, we need to pick it up. And he hired Dr. Carl Frankheiser away from Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus to become the music director for Unity headquarters and Unity Radio. And Dr. Frankheiser was quite successful for many years enlivening church music that for some people had become a little rote, a little tired, and he really revved it up. Even later, starting the Unity Band that for many years played on the grounds of Unity Village, thousands of people would come to hear the music from Broadway and other popular music of the time. And if you can believe it, in those days, the Lee Summit Police Department would give Unity all the names and addresses for the license plate numbers that Unity would have the young people go around through the parking lots writing them all down, and then the police would give them all that personal information. It would never happen today, but back then, a more trusting community, they shared the information. So let's begin today by aligning our minds. We won't be singing, but it's still the same idea, bringing us together with a line of truth or a direction. I take this from Psalm 139, one of my favorites. It's a very long psalm, so I will only quote it in part. But when I read it, I almost want to name it the I Am There Psalm, because it carries that message we'll be talking about more. Is there any place I can go to avoid your spirit, to be out of your sight? If I climb to the sky, you are there. If I go underground, you are there. If I fly on morning's wings to the farthest western horizon, you'd find me in a minute. You're already there waiting for me. Then I said to myself, oh, he even sees in the dark. At night, I'm immersed in the light, God's light. It's a fact. Darkness is not dark to you. Day and night, darkness and light, they're all the same to you. The omnipresence of God. That's a huge concept, that God is always and everywhere present. And sometimes I struggle with that myself. But my little trick for me, my practice, is when I consider God's presence, I just say, James, do you believe it or not? That God is with you, with all. When I have questions about the operation of this church, this community, I stop and say, well, what is your faith? Do you believe that God will lead us forward as a community, or is that just nice talk? Get real, James. Grab your faith. In 1947, the poem that inspires today's lesson, I Am There, the ushers will hand you a beautiful card of it as you leave. It was written by James Dillet Freeman, who also wrote Our Prayer for Protection, many other things, many books for unity. He was director of the prayer ministry at one time, and he organized a special ministerial training after World War II when men were coming home from the war. Unity had a great majority of women as ministers, and so after the war, there was a special effort made to train men as Unity ministers. Well, he wrote this poem not in a time of celebration, not in a time of, wow, isn't everything just great in my life? He wrote this quietly, sitting in the first building that the Fillmores built in 1906 in downtown Kansas City, all by himself, and was sitting in calm and prayer because his wife was in the hospital, the doctors say, dying of cancer. And this poem became titled, I Am There. And I'll share it with you toward the end of the lesson. Often I think, at least from stories I've been told and also from thoughts I have myself, that our unity ideas and unity concepts and principles all come out of extreme optimism and happy days and good times. But when I look at some of our writers, leaders, teachers in past decades in unity, many of their great messages were actually born from struggle, from doubt, from fear. It was as if they understood that in those human challenges, it's as if truth was the rubber meeting the road. It was calling us to faith. Little did Jim know, as he sat by himself in the old auditorium the Fillmores used and penned this prayer, little did he know that in 24 years, the astronaut James Irwin would carry it on microfilm to the moon, where it still is. Imagine who will find it someday. And if they read it, what will they think of these thoughts? Our prayer for protection, for example, was created by Mr. Freeman to meet the needs and hopefully comfort and encourage those all over the world who were in military service during World War II. He tells a funny story that a leader at Unity Village asked him to write something that would lift these people in service, give them courage and strength. And they said, you know, something like the 23rd Psalm. And Jim said, oh, I'm supposed to sit down and write something grander than the 23rd Psalm. But he took the challenge and he wrote that prayer for protection. The eldest son of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Lowell Fillmore, who succeeded his father as president of our headquarters at Unity Village, wrote this prayer. It's even set into a bronze plaque at Unity Village to encourage people who are walking the beautiful, peaceful grounds there. He entitled it The Answer. And just listen for the sense of struggle and then the turning of his mind and heart. When for a purpose I had prayed and prayed and prayed until my words seemed worn and bare with arduous use. And I knocked and asked, and knocked and asked again, and all my fervor and persistence brought no hope. I paused to give my weary brain a rest and ceased my anxious human cry. In that still moment, after self had tried and failed, there came a glorious vision of God's power, and lo, my prayer was answered in that very hour. May Roland, who directed Unity's prayer ministry for 50 55 years, was immersed in unity prayer consciousness. I'm sure she never had a moment's doubt or a difficult day. I'm teasing. I'm sure she did. And part of a famous poem/prayer that she wrote goes this way: Child of light, I bless you. I think of you, I pray for you, not in terms of what I think you need or what I think you should do or be or express. I lift my thoughts about you. Do you catch that? May was shifting her consciousness, not the person she was praying for. She knew she had to lift her mind and heart higher if she truly wanted to be of any support to a person she was holding in prayer. Another, Frank Whitney, who originated our daily word, he wrote encouraging prayers and affirmations, as Sharon just read a few moments ago, for literally millions of people over his time as editor. And he would always remind them, whatever challenge you're facing, look Godward. Look to the possibility of life, not the problems. Myrtle's truth-wrought words came from her consistent contemplation of the biblical letter of James. She would write it often in her letters of support to Unity students, quoting, "Consider it nothing but joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you fall into various trials. Be assured that the testing of your faith through experience produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace." And Jesus, I believe, suggested in that model prayer, we call it the Lord's Prayer. I don't think he used that title. But when the disciples said, "Teach us to pray," he responded with that pattern prayer. And one of the lines included is so potent. He wrote, speaking of God, "You do not leave us in temptation, but deliver us from evil." Do you hear the difference? From a consciousness that saw the divine as the one who put us into trial, put us into testing. If we didn't measure up, then punished us. That was not what Jesus suggested in that pattern of prayer. We take ourselves into temptation and trial. God is the power that leads us forward, that leads us up, that gets us out of trouble as we are willing to listen to the divine prompting. We can go back even further in time, past the Psalms, to the time of Moses, more than 3,000 years ago. Moses receiving the law or truth of God, recently celebrated in the Jewish Pentecost. That receiving of God's truth. It comes down to us through time as 10 commandments. And sometimes I find the commandments are not always that obvious. One has to dig into them to find meaning and relevance for one's life. Yes, we can hear a statement, "Thou shalt not kill." I get it. But what's the deeper meaning? Unity teacher Elizabeth Sand Turner spoke of those commandments and said, well, what do they really mean in your life? It's unlikely that you're going to go out and kill someone. But do you ever kill someone's enthusiasm or joy? Perhaps they hold a dream and you say, oh, you can't do that. That's impossible. that is a form of killing or destruction of what is their hope. Another line from the Ten Commandments: do not take the name or nature, quality, of God in vain. That is to speak of God's nature wrongly. Why is God letting me suffer this? Or why is God punishing me? These statements that are not speaking truly of the infinite love and power of our Creator. There's a Buddhist statement I learned in truth which puzzled me, but I've let that puzzling go on for many years as it kind of sinks into my soul. And it was this simple statement: I know God in my health, and I know God in my illness. That doesn't sound very positive, very optimistic. No. If God is always and everywhere present, I can know God in good days of celebration, and I can also turn to God in times of trouble. Little personal example. Friday, not paying attention, I moved the wrong way and strained my back. I've been moving very slowly this weekend. And this morning at 5 a.m., the alarm went off. I started to move and I thought, I don't think I can get out of bed. The pain when I just tried to turn. And I rested a moment and I thought, God, you are with me. Now that does not mean that I expected an instantaneous, magical healing, but just to shift my attention to the presence and power of God, an impulse that carries me forward. And slowly, with a few sounds, I managed to get out of bed. And this morning, it was good practice because I have to stay as straight as possible to avoid pain. And it reminded me of how grateful I've been for friends through the years that have inspired me. One friend back in New York that I've stayed in close touch with has had quite a few difficult times in life. Details aren't important. But I remember the response he always gives to himself, and sometimes when I'm moaning and groaning, he'll express it to me. And the statement is, I am durable. I love that. I am durable. And so in facing challenges, I look to his example and things he's gone through, and it's like, wow, he's durable. He takes that approach. I'm traveling this week, that's why I won't be here next Sunday, down to Missouri to visit several friends. And friends I just want to check in, to check on. One is in the process of going through a divorce. Two are in the process of moving. And one of my friends from my last ministry is on hospice care. And I want to be able to go in person to visit her. And our friends can have this wonderful being showing how they approach life that gives me hope, that gives me an example. Wow, maybe in that situation, I could be durable too. Maybe in that situation, I could strengthen, as Myrtle said, my endurance and my hope. Maybe in that situation, I can say, James, get with it. Do you believe in the power and presence of God? And for me, I love to contemplate and think about such grand ideas, what we call unity principles of truth. But you know, unless we actually bring them into expression in our life, they're lovely thoughts. I come from Kansas City, the city of Hallmark, and we know lovely, pretty thoughts. And how they can be expressed artistically in beautiful greeting cards. And yes, that can lift someone's spirit to give them a beautiful greeting card, but that's just a gesture. I'm talking about times in life that may be difficult, that may really push us to the edge. And what are we going to believe? And so I just often say, do you believe this or not? That was a turning point in my entering the ministry. I thought, well, that's not like just any job. Going into the ministry, well, who knows where I would go? I could end up in Minneapolis. Who knows where Spirit would lead me? I'm not sure I like that. I kind of want to know what the plan is. And then one day it came to me. Do you have faith in the goodness of God? Do you trust God to lead you in life, to be there with you? Do you really believe this idea? I am there. I am with you. Do you believe it or not? And if you don't, just give up on the whole God thing. Leave unity. Go do something else. You just have to get clear. What matters to you? And so at this point, for our meditation, I want to take you through this prayer by Jim Freeman, I am there. You can think about it as a beautiful idea, so grand that it was carried to the moon to be left for some future moon travelers. But if you'd like, just become still. If you choose, close your eyes, whatever works for you, to join me in holding these powerful words and see how they feel to you when you hear them. Does it embolden you, strengthen you, comfort you? Or do they just sound like nice words that came from Hallmark? You choose. Do you need me? I am there. You cannot see me, yet I am the light you see by. You cannot hear me, yet I speak through your voice. You cannot feel me, yet I am the power at work in your hands. I am at work, though you do not understand my ways. I am at work, though you do not recognize my works. I'm not strange visions. I'm not mysteries. Only an absolute stillness beyond self can you know me as I am, and then but as a feeling and a faith. Yet I am there, yet I hear, yet I answer. When you need me, I am there. Even if you deny me, I am there. Even when you feel most alone, I am there. Even in your fears, I am there. Even in your pain, I am there. I am there when you pray and when you do not pray. I am in you and you are in me. Only in your mind can you be separate from me, for only in your mind are the ideas of yours and mine. Yet only with your mind can you know me and experience me. Empty your heart of empty fears. When you get yourself out of the way, I am there. You can of yourself do nothing, but I can do all, and I am in all. Though you may not see the good, good is there, because I am there. I am there because I have to be, because I am. Only in me does the world have meaning. Only out of me does the world take form. Only because of me does the world go forward. I am the law on which the movement of the stars and the growth of living cells are founded. I am the love that is the law's fulfilling. I am assurance. I am peace. I am oneness. I am the law that you can live by. I am the love that you can cling to. I am your assurance. I am your peace. I am one with you. I am. Though you fail to find me, I do not fail you. Though your faith in me is unsure, my faith in you never wavers, because I know you, because I love you. Beloved, I am there. It is my prayer, it is my hope that this poem, this grasp of God's presence everywhere, always, becomes a living reality for you. Something that becomes your help in any circumstance. Something that wells up as assurance when your human mind is beginning to doubt. Beloved, I am there. And whatever path we walk in life, whatever obstacle we may meet, even all the excitements and joys in life, knowing this presence is your key, your answer for everything. When you strain your back, when you're frustrated with your neighbors, your co-workers, there's something you can call upon. There's something you can bring up from the very depths of your soul and refresh any relationship, any circumstance, because God is there. Let this be our strength, and to use the old biblical words, let this be our rock and our salvation for life. And so we say, Amen. Remember? That means this is our truth. This is our faith. We claim it. And so it is.